Thank you, thank you, thank you. Doors on this side, just leave a clear path in between these engines for the governor and staff to walk. You guys are okay. Center right there. Thank you. Anyone not in uniform, if you could be behind over there, please.
Let's just make one. I'll stand right here.
Yeah, thank you. Have our four principals.
We're not quite in the right place. Oh, good. Yeah, he's a good guy.
Good to see you. Thank you for coming.
Supervisor Holmes from Placer County. Good to see you. That's spoken to the city of Albany.
Trinity Colfax City Council.
Excellent.
Carol Mackey, Mayor Lauber.
Yeah, nice to see you. Thank you.
All right. Who's up? All right.
All right. All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mark Ghilarducci. I'm Director of the Governor's Office of Emergency Services. Today we have the Governor here and a number of our public safety leaders to really talk about a number of things that we are continuing to do to enhance preparedness and public safety throughout the state. Let me start by framing the fact that in the last few years, we have seen increasingly complex and extreme disasters that have resulted in significant amount of damage and destruction and loss of lives. 2018 alone, starting at the beginning of the year with the mudslides that occurred in Montecito in Santa Barbara County as a result of the Thomas Fire following the 2017 fires, all the way through 2018 with a number of fires, and in the north ending with the Camp Fire, which we all know in Paradise was destructive for the entire town. In all in 2018, we had more than 23,000 structures lost and almost over 100 fatalities. This is a very serious situation, and we are continuing to work collectively and collaboratively to be able to address it throughout our state. And there are a number of initiatives that we're going to talk about today, and Governor Newsom is going to brief us on. But before the governor, I'm going to have our public safety partners that help manage at the state level, working with our local governments. Our local government, fire, law enforcement, the sheriff, our emergency managers are an integral component to our overall mutual aid system and our preparedness system in making sure our communities are as safe and resilient as possible. And it's important that we note that the public themselves need to continue to get engaged and informed to be as empowered as possible to protect their lives and property when these events happen. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our first speaker, Tom Porter, who is the Acting Director of the California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection, CAL FIRE.
Thank you, Director Ghilarducci. I'm here to kind of set the framework for why Colfax. What is the significance of Colfax in what is a statewide problem? There are communities throughout California that are just like Colfax. There is a fire problem that we have been working to mitigate through forest resilience work through fuel breaks, through defensible space improvements, and all that goes along with that pre-fire element of wildfires. So Colfax sits, as many other communities, including Auburn, Dutch Flat, on the rim of the North Fork of the American River. North Fork of the American River in this part of the state is a source of most of the large damaging fires that happen here. And putting fuel breaks and fuel and forest resilience kind of programs along below the rim and along the rim near the communities is one way of reducing the intensity of fires and increasing the capability of firefighters to protect the communities. Unfortunately, last year, the Camp Fire really gave us a test and a understanding that the traditional methods that we've used are not working. We have to do more. And this governor, Governor Newsom, is going to be sure that we do so and has promised to support our departments, all of us behind me, in making sure that happens. That is the relevance of why we're in Colfax, and it's very important that we understand that this is a statewide problem. Thank you. Commissioner Stanley?
Thank you, Tom. And I'd just like to talk about the interagency aspect of dealing with these fires. They're so big, they're so large, and they can go on for a long time. And from a law enforcement perspective, there's so much law enforcement that is needed. The CHP and the National Guard, we can come in, we provide assistance to the Sheriff's Department or the Police Department to help manage the fire so we can mitigate it and hopefully as soon as possible get people back in their homes once the fire has been mitigated. And the ways that we help out are with traffic control, security, general law enforcement, and one thing that was always so very important, when people have to evacuate their homes and go to a shelter, they're concerned about the things that are left there in that home. And one of the things that we help out with the Sheriff's Department or the Police Department is patrolling for looters. And there was some of that going on in the Camp Fire, and we were very happy and proud to assist with that and get those people off the streets. And from that perspective, I want to say thank you to Governor Newsom for having the faith in the four of us here, myself, Mark Ghilarducci, Tom Porter, and General Baldwin. We've been working together for the last couple of years, especially we've had so many fires since 2017. And we make a great team. We work hard together. We have a lot of fun, but we understand what's going on, and we're able to bring in our resources to help mitigate these fires and maintain public safety. So with that, I'll turn it over to General Baldwin.
Thanks, Warren. Good afternoon, everyone. The California National Guard has global commitments. Indeed, in the last 2 years, we've had soldiers and airmen deployed to all 7 continents around the world. But for the National Guard, job one for us is here at home, protecting lives and property at the direction of the governor. And the last few years, as Tom Porter and Mark Ghilarducci discussed, have been especially challenging as we've seen this tremendous uptick in the number of very large-scale disasters, mainly fires. As a result, all of us within the interagency that's responsible for public safety have had to evolve the way that we do business. Governor Newsom, when he first came in here on effectively the first day on his job, has directed that we continue to innovate and leverage technology, and specifically for the military department, how can we better use military technologies in order to help our allied fire and law enforcement agencies protect lives and property here in the state? Now, we've been innovative in the past with unmanned systems, but now we're exploring, and at the direction of the governor, are going to continue to explore ways that we can enhance our ground-based sensors, other aerial platforms, and even space-based systems so that we can provide notice and warning to people in real time and to be able to support those out there on the line fighting the fires or responding to disasters with that technology. Some of that change is not merely technological application, but we also have to challenge some of the firewalls and systems that exist back in the Pentagon and back in Washington, D.C., where there's rules that limit our access and our ability to leverage and use these systems. In the use of unmanned systems, for example, in order for us to fly our Reaper aircraft in order to support CAL FIRE, we have to go back to the Secretary of Defense, who personally has to give us permission to do that. That process can take hours or in some cases even days or weeks. During an emergency, we don't have hours. We need to be able to respond immediately. So those are the kind of rules and old ways of doing business that we want to break down. At the heart of innovation must be a willingness to change and a willingness to take on old ways of doing business and come up with better ways of doing business in order for us to respond collectively and collaboratively and with a synergistic effect across the interagency. Governor Newsom has directed us to do that, and all 4 of the leaders that stand before you are poised and have already been talking very excitedly about ways that we're going to work better together, break down stovepipes between our various agencies, and work collaboratively in the interest of the people of California. With that, I'll be followed by our Commander-in-Chief, Governor Newsom.
Thank you, General. Thank you to all of you for being here, and I'm very pleased to be in Placer County, up here in Colfax. I spent a good deal of my life just up the road in Dutch Flat, where we have a home, and down the road where my father was on the Superior Court, where I was, Jennifer, small enough that I fit in that statue where the gold pan is. I was actually physically in the gold pan. I don't think I can fit it in anymore, but that gives you a sense of my history in this part of the state. And I am happy to be back here on my first day at work to make a symbolic and substantive point that I place no greater emphasis and energy and sense of urgency than on the issue of public safety, broadly defined, and in particular the issues of emergency preparedness. I don't know what more evidence one needed than having gone through an election only to wake up the next morning to face not only 2 fires, one up here in the northern part of the state, one in the southern part of the state, but also a tragic shooting down in Southern California. I was, as you may recall, in my acting governor capacity as lieutenant governor, as the governor had left the state, and it only underscored and reinforced the imperative that I place on making sure this state is more resilient and more prepared for natural and man-made disasters. Look, it goes without saying the hots are getting hotter, the dries are getting drier, the wets are getting wetter. You may call it climate change, you may call it global warming, someone called it global weirding to me the other day. Someone at the Monte Vista Inn, we were playing liar's dice the other night, said to me, I don't care what you call it, he says, something ain't right. And the fact is, the climate's changing, and we need to change with it. We still have organized so much of the bureaucracy of government around a world that no longer exists, around a fire season that no longer exists. We staff up, we staff down, and now we're reacting to these old mores, and that fundamentally has to change. In the last few years, I think substantive progress has been made in the state of California. The legislature and former Governor Brown, I think did a very good job in the last few years leaning into these issues, but it's clear to me a lot more needs to be done. You will see that demonstrably recognized with our budget that I'll be releasing later this week. We will place an historic investment in our emergency planning and emergency preparation in this state. We will put over $200 million, not just the $200 million that was announced last year on the cap and trade to deal with forest health and address some of the need to thin our forests and make sure they're more resilient. We will place even more resources than that baseline. We will invest in pre-positioning in ways we haven't in the past with more support local level, more mutual aid. We will invest, the General said, in more technology, more camera technology, more strategies to access data, satellite data, and partner with our federal government on other technology that exists that frankly hasn't been utilized in the past. We will make sure that we resource as well our efforts to focus on alert systems, to build on some of the legislative efforts there, not just with the federal overlays with the WIA program, but some of the local strategies and the issues related to opting in to those alert systems versus opting out. We are going to lay out a strategy and a framework to make sure there's more consistency in the 58 counties in the state and the 470 plus cities that represent this state. Over $305 million will be invested in this space of additional resources, including $109 million to continue our investments in new technology on suppression, specifically as it relates to these Black Hawk helicopters that will be retrofitted for water efforts and for fire suppression. We will continue to make investments in our C-130s and make sure that CAL FIRE has a fleet of these retrofitted C-130s. One will be rolling out formally into our possession, even though we have access to a number of these C-130s. We have a goal of getting 7 additional units over the course of the next few years. So new equipment, historic investment, new strategies to pre-deploy resources and assets, historic amount of money to address the need to invest in our forests to make them healthier and to make sure that they're more resilient, and always an emphasis of supporting local government. And you'll see that also reflected in that budget with grants and with support to localize solutions as each and every part of the state requires unique and distinctive strategies to address the broader issues of emergency preparedness. In addition, and I know we're here talking about wildfires. In addition, we will also be making the final capital investment of $16.3 million into our early warning, earthquake early warning system, which is something I've been eager to see happen for years and years. This final investment will complete our sensors all over the state, and then we'll have to figure out strategies to make sure that we operationalize. You may know Los Angeles did a version of what we want to do statewide. We're going to build on some of the work they've done and make sure that every part of the state has the benefit of that early warning system as well. So broad strokes, we are stepping up our game. I hear you. I get it. We need to do more and do better. These last 2 years have been devastating. 167 lives have been lost in fires or floods. Over 33,000 structures, if you look back over a 24-month period, have been lost in this state. Billions and billions of dollars of property losses. And we are at a point where everybody's had enough. And we need to, I think, make sure we are prepared more than ever for the next few months as we enter into the height of our fire season. So that's the spirit of why we're here. Let me be specific about 3 additional things, and then obviously open up to any questions, and I can flesh out any of the details on the budget if you'd like as well. And that is, today I signed 2 executive orders. One, prioritizing a different strategy to address where we begin to make our investments. And the strategy is a little different than we've seen in the past. I want to use science in a way we haven't, and I also want to address the issue of social mobility in the way we haven't. It's crystal clear to me that the two need to twin. We need to know what parts of this state are most at risk for disasters, for emergencies, for wildfires, but not just at risk from a fuels perspective, and a property damage perspective, but also from the perspective of mobility and lives, socioeconomic considerations, seniors, people that don't have the mobility many others have, folks that don't have the resources that others have, and begin to overlay those two things in a way that then will allow us to more, I think, strategically prioritize where our first investments are made. I have tasked the folks behind me, including the no longer acting director of CAL FIRE, but now the current and permanent director of CAL FIRE, to come back in 45 days with a report that lays out their priorities. And in that report will also include the legitimate considerations of CEQA and the prospect of creating some programmatic EIRs to allow us to move forward much more expeditiously once we have that prioritization and make sure that we hit the ground running in terms of making sure these dollars are being expended and making sure the communities are being protected. Number two, I have been very frustrated with our procurement in the state of California broadly, particularly as it relates to technology and innovation in this space around emergency preparedness. I don't want to bore you, but we have a world of, sort of jumbled language on RFIs, RFPs, RFQs, where, frankly, we are determining solutions, putting these things out over the course of years and years, and eventually some bidders come forward, maybe they don't, and by the time we actually get some product out, the world's radically changed, and what we've invested in no longer is relevant to the world we're living in. We want to flip that completely on its head. And we found a code section. We've got some fancy lawyers, found some code sections that allow me by executive order. I didn't know I could do it by executive order. It's kind of fun being governor. I thought we had to go through this legislative process, but we're just going to do it. We just did it, in fact, sign this executive order where we're going to come out with this new version called RFI 2, and we had to come up with a name. Basically, it's an innovation model that allows us to iterate in real time and to procure in real time different solutions and to test those solutions in the field before then we go through the procurement process. I want to see things happen in real time, and I want people to compete for that mind share and for that work. And so it's a completely different framework. Again, this, I'm not sure any of you are going to be interested. Nightly News is not interested in this, and I'm not sure any of you are going to print this. But this is, I think, actually a really big deal, and it's an encouraging thing that everybody behind me agreed with it and expressed similar frustration, and hopefully they can be relieved of that frustration as we move in a new direction. And finally, we have also signed a letter because I believe in collaboration. And that collaboration extends beyond California. Governor Inslee and Governor Brown of Oregon have signed a letter, along with the state of California, that we are now sending this afternoon to President Trump and the White House, saying, you know what, rather than talking past each other, talking down to each other, maybe we can start partnering and doing the work that needs to be done to address our forest health and forest management. Because at the end of the day, California has a de minimis amount of jurisdiction. The vast majority of what you see behind you, what I see in front of us, is federal land. And with all due respect, they've cut their budget by $2 billion in the last few years to make sure that land is healthier, and yet we're being attacked for not doing our part when, in fact, last year, 49% of the work we did in our forest was actually work for the federal government in their jurisdiction and land. So we put up $111 million since 2017 for forest thinning, and half that was doing the job of the federal government. Now, rather than lamenting about that and, as I say, talking past each other, this is a letter of cooperation and collaboration. And it's a letter that reconciles the fact that it's hardly unique to California, these issues. They matter greatly to Oregon and Washington State. And so the three of us will be doing a lot more together, and this seemed an obvious space for us to work today. And so that's a preview of things, and I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Governor, what should California do to keep PG&E out of bankruptcy?
And there's that. So we're working on that in real time. I'm not going to make news on that because I'm very sensitive to the things that governors say, particularly as it relates to the markets, particularly as it relates to the magnitude of the challenge, particularly PG&E faces as a utility. We want a healthy utility. We want a utility that's investing in the future, low carbon, green growth strategies. That's in an ideal world. That's not the case today. And so we are We are addressing that issue in real time. In fact, this morning at 8 a.m., we had a meeting on that exact topic. And we have a commission, as you know, that the legislature has organized, and we are appointing 3 members to that commission. We'll be announcing those appointments in the next few days, and they will have a very short period of time that they will be tasked to come up with comprehensive recommendations. I'm not just waiting on that commission. We are working collaboratively with members of the PUC, with previous administration, and the folks that I am now bringing into our administration to address the solvency of PG&E.
You spoke about a lot of spending that you were planning on doing. How much of that is new or not, doesn't have legislative authority? I mean, what is...
A lot of this will be, a lot of this is a budget that is part of the new budget that will go through the legislature, either to be supported, rejected. Some of it was committed as long-term investments, but require annual appropriation, including the cap and trade commitment, which was a $1 billion 5-year commitment with a baseline of $200 million a year to invest in forest health. We're going to actually increase that a little bit because we have identified additional projects that we want to move quickly, and then there's $100+ other million in other areas that are new investments in addition to some of the previous investments that I'll be asking for support from the legislature. Well, you want to go through the list? Let's do it. I happen to have it right here. 305. You're going to see in the budget that I submit, it will show a number of 415.1. I can explain to you the difference. But suffice it to say, for the purposes of what I'll explain to you today, the $305 million figure will include the following items. $213.6 million for those fuel reductions and forest health. $64.4 million for what I refer to as surge capacity. This would include the addition of 5 new Conservation Corps crews, which matter to you because we were just down the road here, and all that was cleared out was done by the Conservation Corps. So this, I think, will significantly advantage folks up here in Placer County. We'll also have 13 new engines that we will be investing in, and those engines will be pre-deployed in areas across the state that will be recognized by the work that will be done over the next 45 days as critical, what I would refer to lazily as red flag areas. We will put in $25 million of additional mutual aid to support local government in their pre-deployment work. We'll put $50 million into a communication strategy. And I know this may raise some questions, but it was referenced a moment ago by Mark and others. Individuals play a huge role in their own safety. And it is incumbent upon us to organize strategies at the local level, working with county supervisors, working with local representatives to come up with communication strategies. I, as a former mayor, invested in what we called our neighborhood emergency response strategies. And we want to make sure that every region in the state is organizing at the grassroots level strategies for evacuation, strategies for emergency preparedness, and the like. That money will go in that space. This is a big one, and I'm glad you asked me to go through this list because I was remiss in not referencing an investment in our 911 system. It is long overdue. We have an analog system in a digital world. It is rather remarkable that we haven't made this investment in the past. Now, in order to completely shift from the analog into a digital system, it's going to require, I know, a 911 fee. I know. I get it. No one's happy when they hear that word, fee. But we think it's appropriate. The question is, when do we move on the fee? Good people have different opinion. We're going to have to get the legislature to concur on that. But I think this one crosses, Republicans, Democrats alike. I think most folks understand the importance of that. But in the absence of the fee actually taking shape, we put in $10 million this year for upfront capital, and $50 million, because I look at things from not just a one-year prism, but from a two-year perspective, $50 million that I want to invest next year. But 10 is all we can spend this year, 50 we could spend next year as the fee ramps up. And it's a 2020. I'm looking at this, that we get that fee done, ready to go, investments being made on that fee by 2020. But 10 million this year, 50 million next year on the 911 fee. We're going to have plenty of time. I'm going to go through 4 more to get to the other budget items, and you're going to have plenty of time to ask your questions. Just because this may be interesting, a few more of these things. One of the things that's really important to me is the health and wellness of the men and women behind me. And something that was very indelible when I went down to Ventura, I was up at camp on multiple occasions, fire, was the impact that fire was having, not just on the individuals in uniform, but their families. And so we're investing in the health and wellness of our first responders as well. And I include that in this budget because it deserves to be included in this budget. That to me is hard money, not soft money. And that is new money to invest in making sure that we take care of the brain health, not just the physical health of the folks you see behind me. We're also making the investments, as I noted, in new technology on 100+ new fire cameras, infrared cameras, which will be strategically deployed, new remote sensoring technology. We are going to, as I said, put more investment in retrofitting these C-130s that we're procuring from the Air Force. And to the extent that it is relevant, and I'll jump in, we're going to make a 3-year commitment, which we have never done before, to the folks up in Butte County and the folks in Lake County, because we have not forgotten what happened in 2015, 2016, 2017, and 2018 in Lake County. And that is backfilling their property tax losses. Usually that's done on an annual basis. We're committing to 3 years for the folks up in Butte and the folks up in Lake County. And that is tens of millions of dollars to address that concern, as well as making sure that pursuant to Prop 98 will backfill the loss per pupil ADA as it relates to the school district itself. So that's a preview of that budget.
Governor Mike Lurie from Police Area 3 Sacramento. Yesterday you mentioned about reaching out to rural residents. You just represented today with Butte County and Lake County. I talked to some of those rural residents today in Colfax. They say one of their concerns about wildfires is not being able to afford insurance. They say they're out of the market. Yeah. Some of them have bankrupt companies. They can't find companies that will cover them. What do you say about that?
Yeah, Munich Re came out with a report today showing over $16 billion of insurance losses related to Paradise alone. Only $12 billion of it insured. It also looked at the magnitude worldwide of a world that's radically changing and the insurance risks increasing, consequence premiums around the world, reinsurance challenges, et cetera. So this is along the lines of the PG&E question we just had, front and center, top of mind, and is part and parcel of these larger conversations we're having. Again, I've been on the job now 12 hours, and so we're bringing those same folks together on the wildfires, on the utilities. That is also, when I consider those, it's also a proxy for the insurance question as well.
Governor, 2 questions. Kathleen Renee from AP. Does the state need to, well, the former CAL FIRE chief suggested recently that we may need to think about not allowing
land use. Yeah, we spent 7 hours. I was, look, I once again, I'll repeat it. I was very gratified that the president took the time to be here, and I was gratified we had the opportunity to spend 7 hours dialoguing on this topic and many other topics as well. That's for a book. You can, that's off. That was a joke. But we did have a chance to talk about that, and you know, I know folks made some light about raking. What I think it's interesting. I'll defend him on that a little bit. I think what he was talking about was defensible spaces, landscaping, which has a role to play. I think that's important. You know, a lot of stuff gets conflated, which is understandable. But look, he's never played politics with disaster declarations, and he deserves credit for that, and we are grateful for that. This is not an area for politics. He hasn't hesitated on any of those disaster declarations, from the Orville issue to all these other fires. And I'm pleased as well, Kevin McCarthy's been extraordinary in this space, also getting reimbursements with FEMA. And we had the FEMA director with the president on Marine One, had very intimate conversations on Marine One, specific to reimbursements, specific to forest health and management. And that's why the letter we sent was honestly in the spirit of collaboration and cooperation, in the spirit of that conversation, and frankly a follow-up to that conversation now that I am in a position to more formally express myself as the new governor.
Oh, and on the other question about where and how we build, does the state need to play?
Yeah, forgive me. Look, as a former mayor, I recognize the stresses you all face on this topic. The last thing you want is, you know, some guy in Sacramento, mayor, telling you what to do in Auburn. That said, if there's a point where, common sense, if it's not prevailing, it's not in evidence, maybe we can lean in a little and encourage and incentivize better behavior, not, discourage bad behavior, but incentivize better behavior, meaning positively engage as opposed to come in punitively. But look, that whole issue of the interface, the wildland-urban interface, is real. You look at most of the new construction in the last 2 decades, you look at just driving up here, all the new investment, right down this road, in this area. It's a legitimate concern. And so the only way around it to accommodate the housing crisis, which is much worse because of all of these recent fires, is density. And that's the conversation we're also having in the legislature around what's density look like in big urban settings and how we could provide more density in and around transit corridors, which was a raging debate last year, which actually the AP made national issue last year, and that will be also part and parcel of the conversations we have this year, and I think those two are related.
So, as former mayor of San Francisco, you worked closely with PG&E, you know many of their executives.
Yeah, there's been well, I knew the last 7, they keep going, they disappear.
Does that relationship help change any of these conversations you're having?
Yeah.
Does the familiarity change?
Yeah, no, I think it allows me to pick up the phone because I have the cell phone of some of the executives and have very honest conversations. It allows them to feel more confident with me that they can have honest conversations. And we have. During the transition, we had some very sober conversations. I didn't just wait till I got sworn in yesterday before I had those conversations. There's new leadership there. They've inherited a lot of these problems. I mean, I go back as former mayor, they're in the San Bruno days, and there was a CEO, and then there was another one between that time, and now Geisha's there. I think it matters. The flip side of that, someone could say, well, he's too familiar with them, so he lacks objectivity. I try to be objective about these things as much as I can. I'm a fiduciary to the people of the state of California. That's my role and responsibility, to protect your interests, not PG&E's interests. But sometimes those interests may align, and that's where this gets complicated. And so I think that history actually will advantage, I hope, ultimately a conclusion on this. I'll do that, and right after, just because he's going to kill me because he's been trying to talk, but go right after.
Just speaking of, and then there's this, the president is going to speak tonight about the border.
Oh, yeah, there is this. What is he saying? I haven't checked my Twitter feed.
Well, I don't entirely know yet.
Yeah.
I just want to ask you and perhaps Adjutant General Baldwin.
Yeah.
Because you previously indicated that you're going to draw that down. And so
what can be done, what should be done, what's appropriate, what would be inappropriate, what was our commitment under the executive order Governor Brown signed, how's the remuneration work, what exactly is the work currently being done versus the work that was initiated when the executive order was into place. And based upon the fact that we have militarized a large portion of our border over the course of the last 6 months, and pursuant to what I imagine may come out tonight as it relates to possibility of emergency declaration, that will allow me the ability to assess that changing condition and then make a determination. But I can assure you, I have not deviated from my previous statements in terms of my desire to move in a different direction, and hope we'll be able to make an announcement on that sooner than later.
Would you like a pre-spawn to a potential emergency?
Governor Brown said, don't respond to hypotheticals, or at least engage in them. So that's the one lesson I learned as his lieutenant governor. Yeah.
So I'm still a little confused about all the numbers that were.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry to do that to you.
Is the 305 million in addition to the 200 million?
No, that's part of it. So that's part of it. And there's in the number where you're going to get confused. And the budget's going to be out in 45 days. Is the number in the budget book, which is 415. But there's a reason for that, and that's a more technical reason, because that carries over money that you guys reported on last year, and that goes to the frame of your question. But the bottom line is $305 million of new investments in this space that I'll be asking the legislature to approve. And I laid out some of the specifics that are additional money or new money that was not part of the budget in the past. Some of it was a continuation of previous investments that were one-time last year, and I'm doing one-time investments into the new year. But $305 million is a good number for you to work off of.
Is the 911 fee something
That's
would be tacked onto my phone?
yeah, the 911 fee is something that we are proposing to enact, but not in the near term. I do not anticipate that the legislature will act on that before 2020, meaning I believe the fee will go into effect in 2020. Now, the budget that I'm submitting does not include a fee. It includes capital investment in lieu of a fee to get started, to start building out our system. And that is $10 million this year, 50 that I anticipate putting in next year's budget, and then the fee will replace the need for any capital appropriations and any general fund appropriations, and that is what we are going to lay out in our budget book as the framework that requires 2/3 vote from the California Legislature, and that is a vote that is unlikely to occur in this legislative session, and I can express and explain to you why at another time, but I'm not delaying this. I want to make sure we're making capital investments today. It will be a relatively modest fee. By the way, this is old news. There was an effort last year in the legislature to do the fee. We're just building off the framework, so you can go back to your old clips on this, and you can get the details. Look, the last thing anyone wants to do is, come up at a time when I'm about to announce an interesting surplus that will be a little more interesting than the one you've been reading about or writing about. I don't think it's the right time to be talking about a new fee. That said, it would be wrong of me not to invest in the imperative that is investing in our 911 system, and that's why I will use some of that surplus and the general fund to make a down payment on that until the conditions present themselves where I could convince 2/3 of my colleagues or 2/3 of the legislature to do the fee. Thank you all. Thank you, guys.
All right.